Now it's auto-tune.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
A lot of galleries turned me down because I was the wrong Chinese. And as a response to that, I started my own gallery.
Most of the time when I share something, I'm just like, I don't want to hear what anybody thinks about it. Even if you think it's good, like, great. But like, if you think it's bad, definitely don't tell me if you think it's bad.
Just keeping that mindset, like, hey, this is all positive. Like,
Yeah.
it's all with the goal of helping you be better. They cared enough to go through it and to give you a critique. The worst is like when they don't even
say
bother.
anything. Yeah. They don't even
It's
care.
like, I don't even care. Like,
That's even
like,
worse, yeah.
whatever.
Do you like listening to yourself?
No, I don't.
You can take those off if you want.
Hello? Oh, no, it's fine.
Is that okay?
Yeah. It's like auto-tune. It makes my voice more robotic.
Now it's auto-tune.
Oh, nice.
I actually had it prepared.
Perfect.
Yeah. So we could do the whole podcast,
The whole thing in auto-tune?
if we want. Yeah.
Make my voice super deep.
Yeah. Wait, I got to do that afterwards. Actually, maybe I might be able to. How do I do that?
The same voice that you did for the video.
Oh, wait.
Because I think normally I sound like a chipmunk. I sound like a little, yeah, she said I sound like a little girl.
I like this.
I sound like a, hey, my darling.
I like this. I think we should actually keep it on for a little bit.
Okay.
Is that okay with you?
Sounds good.
I think it loosens it up. Let's keep the conversation
So
light.
loose.
Keep the conversation light. What's your biggest fear in life? Keep it light.
Keep it light.
Yeah.
Oh, man. I'm just like thinking of all the fears. You know, to be honest, like I actually have a fear of heights. It's not my biggest fear, but it's a funny fear considering what I do.
Yeah.
And once I was doing a mural project in Sardinia, Italy. And it was maybe like the building was 3 stories. And to me, like 3 stories is like 3 stories too high.
Yeah.
And so I had to meet with the lift company so they can teach me how to use the lift because it was a lift I was unfamiliar with. It kind of ran off of a truck that ran on diesel. And then the truck had to be turned on and it like ran on stick, like the standard.
Yeah.
And so I was like, if I have to move it, I have to like be able to drive stick, which I couldn't. And especially I didn't want to learn it on like a big truck either. And I was on the lift with this guy who owned the lift company. And we both were obviously nervous. And I looked to him and I asked him, are you afraid of heights? He's like, yes. And I'm like, and you own a lift company? He's like, yeah. He's like, yeah, it makes money, but you know, I don't like being up here. And I'm also afraid of heights. And we're both on this thing.
Yeah.
So that I can paint this mural and you can teach me how to like work this thing. And we both don't want to be on this thing at all. Yeah.
You're in it together. You trauma bonded.
Yeah, exactly.
Is what it is. That's how you get close
It's
to
like
people.
Sandra Bullock and Keanu Reeves and Speed.
Dating yourself.
Yeah.
Dating yourself there. No, that's funny, man. I could not take you seriously this whole time. Like just hearing. It's gonna distract me. I feel like everything good we talk about is just gonna be tainted by autotune. But I like it. Switch gears. I wasn't actually serious about the whole fear question, but I like that you took it there. And that's a valid fear of heights.
Yeah, I don't like it. And I'm always like, always takes me a while, like whenever I'm doing a mural where I have to be up high or even on the scaffold, I have to face the fear and teach myself to sort of, and I have to like reteach myself every time I do it. It doesn't get easier. It gets easier only when I'm doing it for extended period. But otherwise, like the fear comes back every time I go on one. And I'm a certified lift trainer.
Yeah.
So I can certify you and train you to use a lift, but I do not like to
don't send you
be
up
on
there.
them.
Yeah. That's
but
funny.
I know how to operate it well, and I'm a certified trainer.
You just tell everyone what to do.
I was like, yeah, you just
up.
go up there, just go high.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna go with you. It's part of the test where you do it by yourself.
As high as you want.
Yeah.
Take it as high as you want it. That's funny. Cool. Switching speeds here. I want to ask you kind of an interesting question because I think it's a good like pre-starter to every kind of like interview. And I was actually asked this one time too, and it really made me think. But me being a fan of you, I know kind of like your career side of your story, and like, you know, just the work you've done, the things your accolades and all that cool stuff. But one of the questions I've been asked before, and shout out to Anthony for this, is if you had to break up your life into 3 chapters, what would they be so far?
Yeah, that is a good question. I think the first chapter would definitely be my childhood and learning to cope with abandonment issues and depression from my father leaving when I was about 12. And I think that moment, or that period of time, defined me in a lot of ways, which I didn't realize at that age. And so when that happened, my mom became a single mother of 3 boys, which at that age, I didn't realize how hard that was for her to be able to do that. And I definitely I didn't make it easy for her either, especially through those trying times and those ages when you're going through puberty. Sure. I think I was also looking for a father figure, and also when I got into relationships, I had abandonment issues, and I was afraid to let go of people, or I was afraid to get close to people because I was concerned that they would leave me, or it opened up the possibility of abandonment. And I didn't understand depression, and I think me being second generation Chinese and not really having anyone to talk to about it was a big part of it, because I just thought I was just sad all the time, and that I just had to stop being sad, but I didn't know how to. And there was nothing at that time, or there was no resources to even inform me that existed. Like that mental health was something to think about and to sort of consider. And so I kind of dealt with that a lot on my own. But at the same time, because my father was gone, I had a brother who was 7 years younger, and I became his dad. And so I spent a lot of time taking care of him and picking him up from school and taking him to his extracurriculars. And I became his father figure. Actually, in fact, at one point, like when we were younger, like he would call me dad because we didn't have one. Yeah. And my mom was working. My other brother was only 1.5 years younger than me. And so there was some like resentment and anger towards him, because I was like, why do I have to have this responsibility and he doesn't have this responsibility, you know? But then it's like, we're so young, like it didn't like... Yeah,
you're still kids.
Yeah, we're still kids. We shouldn't have been put through that, or like have all those responsibilities. But I didn't have a chance to be a kid. And only when I became an adult, you know, then you're like, oh, you know, like you like better understand it all. But at that time, I didn't. I think I finally broke out of my shell and found myself in college. High school was a trying, so I kind of attribute that to also high school, because that was all kind of tough to me. It wasn't tough academically, it was just tough more on a social level.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, I became more introverted. And in college, I went to art college, which it's like when you find your people. Yeah. You know? And I think when you go to public school in Hawaii, there aren't a lot of art programs, and also there might not be a lot of kids that are interested in the arts or pursuing it after high school. They might see art classes as like easy grade. Yeah. And so I remember in high school, there was maybe like 5 of us that were actually interested in the arts. Out of those 5 kids, I think only like a couple of us actually like left and really pursued the arts. Actually, no, 3 of us at least, because I'll consider what Justin does now, like being an artist. Justin Park was one of them. Oh, okay. And Nikolani Fujimori. Yeah. And so familiar. Justin is, you know, he runs Bar Leather Apron. He's a mixologist now, and that's, you know, he was like one of the better artists in high school too, and that's very much like, you know, being creative and doing all that. Totally. And Nikolani is a designer. He lives in New York. And so I, you know, so then when I was in art college, I was like, then everyone is into the arts. And I really finally found like people that I could talk to and relate to. And those are the people that for a lot of them, I still stay in touch with them to this day. Oh, cool. Whereas like, I don't really like stay in touch with anyone from high school. And when people ask me about high school, I'm like, I don't remember.
Yeah.
It's so long
Yeah.
ago. Actually, no, Kamea was, but Kamea was an art kid as well. But then we weren't like close in high school at all. Yeah, we never had any art classes together.
You guys kind of connected later or
yeah,
something?
yeah. We connected like way later after college.
Yeah. I would say the same about high school for me too. It's weird. Maybe like just not having, I mean, like, yeah, you asked me about that question. It's almost like that time of my life is phased or like kind of blurry a little
like,
bit.
do you remember so-and-so? And I'm like,
yeah, you know, I mean, Molokai, I remember everybody because it's so small. But like, if you ask me about like certain moments or like times, I was like, oh, I totally forgot that happened. Like, it just doesn't register to me. So, okay, so kind of chapter 2 is college. You know,
I think that was, because I was in college and I was living on my own and I was trying to like just find myself and find, you know, just like who I was as a person on my own. And I was alone too. My brother, like we lived together for a little bit because he ended up moving to San Francisco as well. But then at one point, you know, his girlfriend ended up going to University of San Francisco, so they lived together. So for a good chunk of my life in the Bay Area, which I lived there for about 6 years, was just by myself.
Wow.
So I lived there, and that's when I was also sort of finding my own art. I think as you're sort of growing up and going through high school, like you emulate a lot of artists that you look up to. Yeah. Versus like trying to like discover your own style. And in college was when you're like, oh, you started sort of experimenting more, or you were validated. Yeah. Yeah. And I think during those times, like social media wasn't really a big thing yet. So I also started doing my first art shows at that age in college. And that's when people, you know, saw my work for the first time. And at some points even bought my work. So that's when you're like, oh, wow, like people actually like it. Yeah, super cool. Because then otherwise, like being an artist can be a very isolating, very solitary pursuit. Whereas like then you're able to share the work, you know, through shows. I mean, nowadays people can share it online, but still to this day, like it's really great to have to be a part of shows. Physical, people sort of see it in person. Yeah. Etc. Because it is different to sort of see a work in person versus like a photo of it. You're experiencing it, really. Exactly. Yeah. And so, and I also like fell in love going to museums and going to like Broadway shows and all those things, like musicals and everything, and also just hanging out and talking to artists. Like there'd be times when I would just like hang out with other artists and we just like, talk about art until morning. Yeah. You know? Yeah. And those are always like good times when you're trying to just. I kind of, to be honest, like I look back at it and I'm like, I really didn't appreciate college. Like I kind of wish I could go back again, because I think at my age now, I'm like, to have this period of time where you didn't have much responsibilities and you could just spend it learning is huge. Totally. But at that age, like it's just like, you're almost like too young to appreciate it. You're almost like, I just want to get this over with so I can get my degree and stop going to school. But you're like, no, this time, like, enjoy this. Like you have to pay this much money, like take all the lectures. If I went back, I would have taken like everything. I would just be like going to school, I'll be like have way too many like credits. Like I wouldn't even care, because I'm like, why not? Why not? You have nothing else to do. That's your job is to learn. So like, why don't I just like take advantage of that? Like, I didn't, and I wish if I could go back in time, be like, I'll just spend time learning and just enjoying that. Because now I'm like addicted to learning, but it's like on my free time. I'm like, I'm gonna like study this, learn this, whatever. And you have less time to kind of do it and pursue all that stuff. Exactly. And you're like, oh man, like back then. You didn't have I could have just sat around all day and just like learn stuff. And that like sounds amazing now. Yeah. Chapter 3. Chapter 3 is definitely Amy and family for sure. Yeah. So after college, I lived in the, you know, part of like the end of chapter 2 would be, you know, me living in Hong Kong. And I lived in Hong Kong about 4 years. And, you know, that's when I started a gallery and everything and all that. And I always wanted to be a father. And I think that was also in part of me not having one, where I wanted to be like an amazing father. And also at the same time wanted to be like an amazing husband, because my dad wasn't there and I saw my mom go through a lot. And so so then it was you know, Amy, she actually went to the same high school as me, but we didn't know each other. then. I tell people that we did, but then we didn't.
Yeah.
She was a cheerleader and I was like a nerd.
Yeah.
So I didn't even exist in the same
The classic trope.
the same stratosphere. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like I was like invisible.
Well, that's cool. It's the cool art guy gets the girl.
And then my brother was a football player. So everyone knew my brother
yeah.
because he was like a football player. He was a running back. But it's like Kalani High School. So
Yeah.
it was like everyone was small and he just got like killed.
Yeah.
He just gets like, I think he had like a couple concussions from that.
Really?
He like stutters. And so we always sort of like,
I know.
it's because then you played football in high school. You got hit in the head too much.
Yeah. All the concussions from too much CTE for high school football
But
players.
he's a captain now. He's a captain
Just a little
at
bit. Yeah.
in Pro City.
Oh, cool.
Firefighter.
Wow.
But yeah, so
So being a dad, family.
being a dad, yeah.
you know.
So I would come back, and Amy and I became friends for a while, and we never had a time where we could, like, there was never an opportunity for us to date each other. We were just friends. Like, either I was dating someone or she was dating someone, and we were never single at the same time, but we were just like friends. And when I was in Hong Kong, we would, I guess back then it was Skype.
Yeah,
We would like Skype each other.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so we spent a lot of time just like, you know, building our friendship, but just through talking a lot and hanging out a lot, like online.
Yeah.
And then whenever I come home, we would hang out.
Yeah.
And so when we finally were both single and we tried dating each other, we dated each other for 3 months and then she got pregnant.
Whoa.
And so that was Ella,
Yep.
who's now going to be 12. And our family is very traditional. So it was like, you guys got to get married,
yeah.
before the kid is born.
Whoa.
And so we had to get married. We got like a minivan. Like we pretty much like did everything. But she ended up being the first girl I ever lived with. Like I didn't live with any of my past exes. Like she was the first girl I ever lived with.
Okay. Yeah.
And so there was like a big learning curve of like not only learning to like live with someone, but also being a parent.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then she never thought that she would ever have a kid.
Whoa.
And all of a sudden, like we're parents.
Yeah, you guys got locked in really quickly.
Yeah, and so we had to like learn how to be with each other and also be parents at the same time.
Well, it's almost like your entire relationship was like being parents, right? Or like because you guys had but you knew each other for a long time.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, that's where I said like we never actually got a chance to like date each other with just like the two of us.
Whoa.
Like outside of maybe like a year of us, you know, when she was pregnant. You know, but that was like kind of a storm of like different things that we were trying to do to sort of appease our families as well.
sure. Wow.
Yeah. But now we have 2 kids and we've been together for about like 13 years now.
You guys were late 20s?
Yeah, we're in our late 20s.
Late 20s.
Yeah.
I've always been curious about this, especially because like knowing, I mean, you're a successful artist and you know, you have a family and people to take care of and stuff. I've like, when you got pregnant or when you and Amy got pregnant, how far along in your career were you? Like, were you very established at that point?
No, not at all.
Yeah.
Not at all. Why you? She's like laughing at me.
She's in the other room playing her games right now.
Yeah, she's playing Roblox.
No, I'm working
I can see your
on
screen.
stuff. No, that was a moment where I said something really messed up.
I wasn't going to bring that up, but then she brought it up.
You don't have to if you don't want.
Amy said that she said something very messed up. So, okay, then I can talk about that then because she brought it up. So, what happened was, you know, I was single for a long time and I lived on my own for a while, and I was living in Hong Kong where the cost of living is a bit lower as well compared to Hawaii, and so I would take on jobs. I would take on as many as I needed to sort of take care of myself, which wasn't going to be like a lot.
Sure.
So I kind of was living this life where like living in Hong Kong, like doing different things, trying different things, owning a gallery. You know, the gallery that doesn't make a ton of money, but the rent was cheap, so it was okay as long as it covered the rent. Even if it didn't, it was fine because it was also my studio. So it was like my studio rent.
Yeah.
You know? It was like fine. So I was kind of like living this sort of like artist life. I'll travel, I'll do different things, you know, kind of more free. And, you know, when we got married, get kids, there's obviously it's like, oh, financially, how are we going to deal with this?
Yeah. Yeah.
And Amy told me one day that she's like, I don't want to take care of you. Like, you have to like make money.
I want to talk about that.
And so if like, so I was like, yeah, of course. You
Yeah,
know, like
yeah.
I get that sentiment because at that time she was working in luxury brands. Like she was working at Ferragamo.
Oh wow.
And so she was doing well, and I was just kind of like an artist, like I'll just do this, do that, whatever,
Yeah.
freelance, etc., etc. Yeah, but then I became like more focused on my work and on like getting work, and trying to like make money for the family
Sure.
as well. And so I kind of like dived pretty deep into just like working a lot. Plus like doing the festivals, which didn't pay me. So it was like trying to like at the same time do my passion projects as well as trying to like make money.
Yeah.
Which is what I do to this day. But yeah, it's just at that time it was like it was tough to sort of really focus in and try to like and I started just taking like a lot of jobs. I even started taking jobs that I didn't really want to do, but I needed to do to make money to take care of the family.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's a level of, I think, of like sacrifice that you probably had to go through.
I mean, that's just similar to this day. And sometimes you get a job, you're like, but you know what? Like, I got to do it. Because, I mean, you're still going to do the job well. It's just like, if you had a choice, if you had the freedom to, you may or may not have taken that particular job, especially if it gets like art directed to hell too. You're like, or the jobs are, but the worst ones are more, I'm being hired more as like a hired hand. Like there's nothing creative about it. It's just me like executing.
You're a service. You're a tool to like execute.
It's like very commercial.
Yeah. Definitely. I feel like that's something a lot of artists can relate to in terms of needing to do those stuff because again, pays the bills, but you got to do it. What would be? I mean, like in following that same line, is there any tricks or like things you've done that keeps that balance? Because I feel like you can very easily get into just doing stuff for money and like those jobs and kind of losing way with your creative side or just like who you are as an artist. Is there anything you've done or like prioritized in particularly that like you've never lost that? Have you gone through that? Have you experienced like it's not imposter syndrome. It's more of like I'm doing so much other work that I feel like you've lost your voice. Have you ever gone through stuff like that?
I definitely have, for sure. Yeah, there was definitely a period where I didn't feel like I was doing my own work anymore. And I was just more a tool and I was no longer really being creative. And I stopped painting and doing any of my own personal work either. And so there's definitely a period of time where that kind of all went away. And I was just working. Yeah. And I've always was jealous of friends who were hired for their work. It was like, oh, that's like the dream to like someone hire you and they just want you to do what you do versus like, oh, we want you to like do this.
Yeah.
And we know exactly what we're looking for, or the frustration of like then trying to appease a client and you're just like shooting in the dark until it hit, and then their response is, I'll know it when I see it, and you're like, well, but I don't know. So how many are we gonna do until we figure this out? And I didn't really have a mentor or someone to help me guide me through that. So my agreements were a bit loose and I would do so many rounds of revisions where it just got
ridiculous.
Yeah, it got ridiculous. It felt stagnant. It felt really frustrating and really tough. And there's some projects where like I'll go through like 12 or 13, like 15 rounds of revisions. Sheesh. And you're like, oh man, like what's happening? Yeah. And the work has changed so much. Yeah. And then you're just like trying to like do these little things like, oh, we want this to be a little bit bigger, this to be smaller. And you're like, but how big, how small? Like what's happening? And I remember some of those projects where I was just like, you know what, I can't do anymore. Like this is like, I think we've kind of hit the end of it. Like I just can't handle this. It's just going nowhere. Wow. And then they're like, oh, okay, it's all good now. And then you're like, oh my God, like was it good? Maybe like 3-4 revisions ago. Yeah. So
I have a theory on this, and because we work with brands and agencies all the time. I feel like in the similar art or like because of film, I'm having to deal with it. But I have a theory that like when you send like work over to people who are giving approval, it's just like they just need to come up with something to make it seem like they're have an opinion or like a job to do, when it's like really it was totally fine the way it was. Like, you know, like the little micro
Yeah.
things, like, oh, I don't like the way this curves that way, or this shot doesn't feel right, maybe blah blah blah. And it's just like, man, are you just saying stuff just to say stuff so that you can keep your job? And I feel like that's such a relatable thing with, you know, again, people who create art but can be used as like a service to execute other things.
Yeah.
That's an interesting one.
Yeah, I think it's always like it's always been sort of this tough thing. So nowadays, like and also through just being more open and talking to friends and how they operate, it's been more, you know, how do you craft your agreements to sort of avoid these things, and then you sort of and then what would be like an industry standard and what is okay and what's not okay.
Yeah.
And then you try to like then figure that out and figure out a best way to sort of like find a good happy ground and sort of set limits and set expectations.
Yeah.
And I think when you're coming up as an artist, like you don't do that, and it's kind of like I got a job, yay! And
Yeah,
you're
you
like,
just
oh my god, what's
do it for
going
whatever.
on? Now, yeah,
Yeah.
It's like this has been so hard. It's such a tough job. But you're like, no, you have to sort of spend the time as part of your job to create parameters. And as a young artist, you don't think about that and you don't do that. And after, as you become more experienced, you're like, okay, yeah, for everything we'll set parameter. And usually there is an industry standard of like how many you should and shouldn't do.
Yeah.
And if it goes beyond that, then how much you should also get paid on top
for
of that.
on top. Yeah.
And also at the same time, like creating parameters also helps on their side too, because they're like, okay, we have 2 rounds, let's consolidate feedback.
Yeah.
Versus, oh, maybe I'll just tell them that I don't like this red, and that counts as 1. You know? No, it's like, oh no, it can't be this. It can be like,
Gather
let's
it
get
all together.
everyone to sort of discuss it,
Yeah.
and then give him like notes, and that's so that he can like make all these changes, and so that at least time is like better spent versus like all these like tiny changes.
Sure.
And so I had to learn that. I learned that the hard way, unfortunately.
Yeah.
That's why I always tell kids now. I'm like, oh, what's some recommendations? I'm like, find like a mentor or find someone that you can talk to, just ask questions or go through things. You know? And that way at least you can sort of avoid some of the frustration and the heartache of like trying to figure it out on your own. And a lot of us have done it, or there's industry standards that are in play that you can just learn right away.
Yeah, totally.
Or for me, I'm always to people like, you know, I'll send you my agreement, and you can use my agreement. You can make adjustments to it, but at least it's a template for something to use, because I paid a lawyer to sort of craft that.
Yeah.
So you might as well take advantage of what I paid for, instead of you paying like a couple grand for that. Like I paid that so that I can share it. You know?
Yeah.
And
that's such a sign, I think, of like maturity and seasoned like expertise, is like you're taking, or just like setting boundaries in that sense.
Yeah.
Because again, like you said, I mean, you're starting out, you don't really think, like you're just worried about like, oh, I just want to make cool stuff and like get my name out there, and then you don't really think about the protection that you kind of need to have, and you learn by the hard way, like you learn the, you know, hard knocks. And that's a thing.
I think it takes a while, and I'm lucky that I have like Amy now too, because she helps me with a lot of the back end stuff. Because at one point, like I did all the stuff on my own. Yeah, wow. And now I can sort of like bounce stuff off of her, or you know, or you know, we can discuss like, you know, fees and different things, or what is needed for this project, what we don't need, and how we can sort of like work around this budget, or like, you know, if it's not working out, like how low can it be until we're like, okay, you know, like we just can't take it, or like, okay, it'll still work out, or maybe there's other benefits to this job, perhaps, you know. And
that's cool. Yeah,
so it's been helpful to have someone else to talk to, and then also, you know, our network of artists and friends out there, like we have a lot of people like, oh, and people send me stuff. Like I have friends in Japan, they're like, hey, I got this agreement. Can you look at it for
me?
Check it out.
Because totally.
English is like my second language, and I don't know what they're asking for. And I'll like I'll like redline it for them. So like, I think this is not good. Yeah. Ask about this, or maybe go through this, or perhaps get this changed. If not, then don't sign it.
Yeah. And that's cool having the resources and kind of people in community to help you out with that kind of stuff. I think that's so important too. And that kind of brings me back to how you mentioned like galleries, or just like having like live art shows like that. That was the other part of, I feel like art is meant to kind of, or like, you know, one of the good things is like it brings people together, or like kind of brings communities and people to meet and like connect with people. I know based off of like when I've talked to you before for our film, like you've said that was kind of like a big reason why you create, right? Or even with Hawaii Walls or Worldwide Walls and Powwow, like part of it was bringing people together. Or was that accurate, or was something you connect with people that way, right?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah. So I really fell in love with galleries.
I might turn the auto tune off for just for a second. I think I'm going to turn the auto tune off. I want to, just for a little bit. We'll bring it back on at the end. I'm like, sorry, I asked you a question and I'm like just kind of bugging on it. But here, let's turn both of those off. How's that?
Okay, much back better. To normal now.
Yeah, we'll go back right before the deep questions. That's what we want.
So yeah, so when I was living in San Francisco, I really fell in love with art galleries and being able to show my work and being able to connect with people through the art, not just like to the public, but also to like other artists. It became like a gathering place, and almost like a sanctuary for a lot of us to sort of find a safe place to share our work.
Yeah.
And so I did a ton of shows when I was living in the Bay Area. And when I moved to Hong Kong, I wanted to continue that. But the scene was a bit different because it was more centered around sort of financial gain versus community building.
Oh, interesting.
And platforms and connecting artists and building culture. No one would show you unless they felt that you had the potential to sell the work.
Yeah.
Which I also understand because they have rent to pay and they have different collectors or different people to please. But we kind of like then like lost these like sort of platforms or these sort of places for artists because it became centered around how much money you could make or how much work you can sell. And a lot of galleries turned me down because I was the wrong Chinese.
Really?
Yeah, they would tell me that like the hot commodity are mainland Chinese artists, so artists from Shanghai, Beijing, but I'm American, so they felt there was less potential to sell my work because it wouldn't be a good investment.
Interesting.
And as a response to that, I started my own gallery. There was a abandoned restaurant that was abandoned for about a decade, so no one had that space for a long time. And it was on the outer edges of the gallery district. So the gallery district was like central on Lang Kwai Fong, that area. It was like a lot of bars and clubs and restaurants and galleries. It was kind of like a hip district. So you go one out from that, it's Seungwon. And then one out from that, it's Sai Ying Pun. And I was in Sai Ying Pun. And Sai Ying Pun at that time didn't even have a train station that went out there. So you had to like get off the train and then like take a tram or a taxi or a bus to like where I was. And the way that Hong Kong works is that everything is centered around different districts. So there's a district for like electronics, there's a district for buying appliances, a district for buying fabric, so then and every district has like all these stores that sell the same thing. But so the Sai Ying Pun was known for, at that time, dried seafood and these sort of items that you would burn to send to your ancestors that were passed away.
Whoa.
They kind of look like piñatas. They're like made out of paper. And they'll be like mansions and Ferraris and Louis Vuitton bags and different things. And you would sort of send them as offerings to ancestors that passed, so that they would receive a Louis Vuitton bag in the afterlife.
Interesting.
And so I always went to buy those things. I thought they were really funny.
Yeah.
But my mom was like, no, because it invites ghosts to your home.
Whoa.
Because if you have these things, and ghosts like, oh, this guy has like a
thing.
Ferrari and a Louis Vuitton bag in his house. Like, so it's an invitation to ghosts, so don't buy it. But I was like, it's so cool though.
Yeah.
So I never got one, but I just kind of admired them.
Yeah.
But so I was in that district, so it wasn't an art district. But my goal was to provide a platform for artists in Hong Kong, and also to fly in friends that are artists to Hong Kong to do shows. And even if it didn't make money, it was okay.
Yeah.
And so the very first Pawa was in that gallery. That was like 2010.
Wow.
And the mission for that project was, one, to forget about the financial nature of having a gallery, of doing artwork. Like, let's just do art for art's sake.
Yeah.
Let's go back to like, when we were kids and just like drew for fun. And just like highlight that. And I have that worry that sort of like is this going to sell? Like, is the gallery going to go under? Like, who's going to be, if I don't help this gallery pay rent, then, like they took a chance on me. Like, let's like remove that anxiety and just have it, let's just make art. And also another thing was like, hey, let's also share a process. So let's find some artists and let's all paint and work together in the gallery and open that up to the public. And if they can come and watch us create if they want to. Yeah. And also try to like, and then there was even some artwork that we did for the event where like, hey, let's also highlight the ephemeral nature of it. Like if we just create the work and then we destroy it afterwards, then it's just really about creating, because then there is no final piece. And sometimes the process of creating something is more interesting than the final. And to be able to witness that is not something that's as often shared.
Super cool.
And so that was important for us. And also this is like, before social media really blew up as well. So you didn't really see a lot of process, like, unless you like knew an artist and they invite them to like watch them paint.
Yeah, you go check them out.
That's not something that people shared as often comparatively. And so we did that, and that was a success. Everyone like loved it. We worked with this other space called GarageWorks. We did a show with Ambush. It's like, and that's, it will end up being something beautiful that we like wanted to continue doing outside of Hong Kong, to take it to like other cities, etc. But I also continued operating that gallery and doing different shows monthly in Saigon and really trying to like highlight local artists. And
wow, so you did it monthly though? Like that was a thing you do? Because now it's yearly with.
Yeah, well, I was doing gallery shows monthly.
Oh, okay.
But the festival was annually.
Got it.
Yeah. At one point, honestly, the festival was almost monthly or like bi-monthly because we were doing it all over the world.
Yeah.
So after that, I was like, let's make Pawa like a traveling show. So I reached out to friends in different cities, but a friend here in Hawaii, Krista Whitmire, convinced me to try it back home. So I came back here to sort of do that. And that first year was hard because I didn't really have a proof of concept outside the work that we did in Hong Kong, and I couldn't get sponsorships and funding. And so it became hard to raise money for it. And I reached out to different sponsors, and some were interested, but many were not, because they never saw art shows or art events or art related events as a good vehicle to promote their brands. So no one wanted to sponsor it. And so I was given the option to, one, just give up on it, two, perhaps scale it down, make it cheaper, or three, just go for it. And at that age, I was like, shoot, I'll just go for it. Put on my credit card, bought all the flights, bought all the paint, etc. We got the venue for free, luckily, and also we got accommodations for free because we stayed at Kamea's family's home in Pupukea.
Whoa!
But then that meant that we had to like drive back
all
and
the way
forth
back
from North Shore and Kaka'ako like every day. Wow! But we made it work, and one of the things that sort of changed everything and that changed the way that we sort of operated was there was a wall in the parking lot of where we're doing a fresh cafe, but the wall belonged to the neighbor, which was it was a vet office, and so we would need her permission, even though like access to it was from Fresh Cafe's parking lot. So I remember walking into the neighbor's business and asking if it was okay. And her immediate reaction was no. Like, I don't want you guys painting on my wall. I'm like, but it doesn't really like affect you guys because the only people that see it it's only really visible to Fresh Cafe customers. But I told her like, it's a win-win if you let us paint it, because one, you either get like art on your building that she might love, or two, if you don't like it, we'll paint it over and you get like a freshly painted wall, and then that wall needs to be repainted anyways. So no matter what, like it's a win-win. Like just give us the opportunity. And so she did. We painted the mural, our first mural, and she loved it. And the following year, we just pretty much like went door to door to try to get more walls.
Really? And that's how you guys did that.
And we just did 12 murals the following year. But and then eventually like we did like over 100 and did over like for span of almost a decade just painting murals in Kakako. But one thing that we did learn, and that from like having a gallery as well, is that for a lot of people, galleries and museums are seen as elitist, and they don't welcome everyone. And so a lot of people, they like, even when I had a gallery in Hong Kong, like people will like look through the window, but they wouldn't want to walk in because they didn't feel like they'd be welcomed.
Yeah.
And it was interesting to sort of think about that too, and also think about like, and even with museums, like if you're living paycheck to paycheck, you might not have the disposable income to even go to a museum, because that might cost like $20, $30. So you're not gonna like sort of like spend that much money to sort of just walk around and see artwork,
Yeah.
And so then by doing public art and doing murals, it gave art back to the people because it turned their communities into open air galleries. And it removed that barrier of access, and it just kind of made art more accessible to everyone. And also at the same time, it kind of like went further or continued our original missions of one, sharing process, and two, collaborating and working together, and three, it was not financially driven because I can't sell those walls. Like those buildings don't belong to me.
You can't pay to
I don't,
see.
I don't own any property in Kakako, so I'm not raising property value for myself either. Like I own nothing. And so it kind of like continued all those goals, and even more so now we kind of focus in on underserved communities, such as Kalihi, and giving back to schools and community centers and museums and these spaces, and to sort of like turn them from spaces to places. And from there we were able to, then we also sort of recognize that like these places and these are filled with families that see them as sanctuaries, that need them and that they're a part of, and sometimes they don't have access to the arts, and so we just started painting everything Kalihi. So over the past 2 years we painted over 100 murals, like 110 murals now in Kalihi.
So sick.
And we do this festival in over 25 cities around the world. And we do about like 6 or 7 festivals a year.
So rad.
No.
So cool.
But with that same goal in mind. So we've seen this, like some people, you have a proof of concept. I'm like, we've been doing it for a long time and we see it. We've been doing it for a while. So and we, to this day, like Amy and I, like these days it's run by Amy and I. It used to be like run by a much bigger group with like Kamea and Jeff Gress and Krista and June and Steve, like all these guys, Sonny. But like nowadays it's just Amy and I. And we push to like make it happen. Even though like I want to take a break, my wife says no.
That's cool.
We gotta keep giving back no matter what.
That's awesome. I feel like even when we because I asked you about that for our film too, about just you kind of seeing if I even look at just knowing you and your story, using what you do now almost as like your way of giving kids now that it's the thing that you didn't have, or like the thing that you got so lucky to discover at that age, right? It's like you're kind of paying it forward that way. It's just like keeping the cycle going of
I think also like another thing to sort of add to that is, I think when I first like decided to be an artist, one of the things that always kind of bothered me was like, being an artist is very self-serving. Like I'm trying to be an artist so I can like promote myself, and it's just kind of really about me versus like being able to like give back to people. Or a job or a career where it's like sort of centered around people outside of yourself versus like something that's more like self-serving. And that always kind of like was like, oh man, what am I doing? Like, why don't I just like become a doctor or like work in nonprofits or something where I can like sort of or be a teacher. I think that was always that thing, was like if I couldn't make it as an artist, like I would, or if there's any other career that I would choose, it would be a teacher. And so I kept thinking about that, and I was like, what can I do as an artist to sort of give back? And luckily, like with this festival and doing this type of work kind of is our way of
Yeah,
giving back. And I didn't really
totally.
understand it until later, until I think, to be honest, like when we did a project in public housing in Massachusetts, in Worcester. And we did a project out there, and it's run by Jess. And this mother of 2 daughters came up to us, and she told us that for their entire lives, her daughters were embarrassed about where they lived because they lived in public housing. But people don't choose to live there; they need to live there. But they were always embarrassed because there was always stigma attached. And people look at you differently when you're like, oh yeah, I live in public housing. They're like, oh, okay. Yeah. Like, they're going to associate different things to that, which oftentimes is just stereotypes or untrue. And so then she said that her youngest daughter told someone where she lived, and they responded and asked, is that where all the paintings are? And that small shift in perception meant everything to them. It gave them pride in where they live, which sometimes doesn't exist when you live in these places. And I was like, oh yeah, like we are doing work that can help. That isn't so self-serving that maybe it can benefit others. We did a project in Kathmandu, Nepal, where we painted a school for homeless children. And I still follow them and watch them on Instagram, and I still see all the murals in the background and everything, and how it kind of like shifted this school that honestly didn't even really have floors. It was just kind of like these walls and like dirt floors, and they just took care of all these kids, and it kind of just like brightened up the school. And then I'm just like talking to like parents, or I'm talking to teachers or administrators at different schools, and saying how much it means to these children and these kids for us to sort of give back and paint their schools. And you see the impact that it has beyond art. You see how it can affect people, and then they're like, oh yeah, maybe. And so then it makes it more important for us to continue doing the work. And that's why we keep pushing, even though it's like so hard to put together. It's like so tough to sort of keep these things alive, because then we have to raise a lot of money, and then we like pretty much use it all and to raise it again, and it makes no money because it's all public art. Like I'm not charging tickets, and even more so, I'm like, if we're gonna do an event, it has to be free. Like I don't want to charge money for these events. The only time we charge money sometimes for different events, if it's like some concert or something where like it's gonna cost a lot and we need to sort of like break even or something,
to offset
or like offset it.
Or
like if we if it's like a talk and we're like, hey, we're going to charge like a nominal fee so that you actually show up.
Just to add the value, or like to make people have value to it.
And so, but otherwise, like we try to make sure like all of our events are open to the public.
It's so cool. Making it accessible is a big thing. I think that's like, I can relate to, just personally, because like I grew up not really having, art wasn't like a career path, or like, like to me, it was never like a direction that I thought like, oh, this could be something that I do. Whereas now, again, accessibility, you have that kind of door at least somewhat open there, in a sense. And for you, I know as a kid or just like growing up, how fundamental was like art to you? Because we talked about it like in the film again, like it was like
as a kid, like art was everything. It was like all I had. My mom was pretty strict, so we couldn't, watch TV during the weekdays. So Saturday morning cartoons was like, I was like, oh yeah, I can watch TV. And I hated missing cartoons on Saturday morning, because if I missed that day, I completely
You're
like
lost.
I won't be able to go back to that episode. Because like, there wasn't anywhere to sort of watch it. Like it's not like today the kids are so spoiled, like this like streaming, they can just watch whatever. I'm like, no, like if I missed that, then all I get is like, this is what you missed last week, or this happened last week, and you're like, that's
recap.
all. That 1 minute recap is all like, and
sometimes they don't even do that.
And so you're like, what happened? They
I'm
check like,
completely lost.
And so we didn't have any of that stuff, and so I spent a lot of my time drawing. A ton of it drawing, and a ton of it like reading comics. I read like a lot of Marvel, DC, and I read a lot of manga as a kid. And it was like whatever I could get my hands on. So it was never like in order either. It was like, oh, I have issue number 15 of this. And then now I have like issue number 20. Like it was never like, my mom wasn't like, oh, I'll get it to you like every month. I'll make sure that you're like, I'm like, no. I was like, I don't know what I'm reading. So it was more just me like enjoying the artwork more so than like enjoying the stories. Because I would just get like,
you only get
segments.
like the section of it. Yeah.
Yeah. And then sometimes like in Costco, they used to sell these things where like they put like a ton of comic books and it was just like random comics.
Yeah.
In this like big box that and my mom would buy it for me, and I'll just have all these like random,
and it would
like,
just never be finished.
Like X-Force number 10, and you have Avengers
Dude,
number
I remember those.
22, and like I don't know what happened before or after.
No idea.
I just have this one little tiny section.
But it's cool. You see like the little window of the cool art and stuff. And you're like, oh, I can kind of figure out what's going on. But,
yeah.
It's interesting.
So I spent a lot of time like making up my own stories.
Yeah, cool.
Because I only had these little segments. I never had any. I never was able to enjoy full stories.
Oh yeah.
So I was always like making up stories. And I was like make up my own sort of like all my composition books were just like filled with like my own comic book characters. Because I also like collected a lot of like Marvel collector cards, and I would like have all the stuff, and I'll try to like make my own, make my own versions of everything, and then all the edges, all the little corners were all like flip book animations.
Wow.
So it was.
So you could like do that. Yeah.
I wish I still had those. It was like just like little stickmen fighting each other.
Yeah.
Ripping their legs off and stuff, and like doing kamehamehas and hadokens. And different things.
Yeah. Super cool.
Yeah, I still all that stuff when I was a kid. I spent so much time doing that.
Yeah.
I also worked in my mom's grocery store in Kalihi, and so then like in the back of the store, she would keep us there, and there was a tiny TV, and I would spend a lot of time drawing back there or like watching Captain Planet. That's what I remember. I remember Captain Planet, and I remember drawing in my composition books a lot.
Yeah.
And when my mom couldn't find a babysitter and she didn't want us staying with her at the store, she would leave us at the library. The library was our babysitter. So she would leave us either at Liliha Library or at the state, like the main library.
Wow.
And we would spend our whole day just in the library.
That's cool.
And when I was a kid, no one taught me how the library worked. So I thought that I had to borrow the book in order to read it.
Yeah, you couldn't just read it.
So I would just like get a book. Oh, I want to read this book. I'll like borrow it.
Yeah.
I'll read it in the library. Then I return it back to the library like 30 minutes later.
Oh my gosh.
And I'll keep doing that.
Yeah, that's funny.
I was always borrow and return it, borrow and return it, borrow and return it all day long because no one told me that that's how I could just like read it. I thought I had to borrow in order to read it.
To read the thing, yeah.
No one told me anything.
That's funny.
I knew nothing.
Yeah.
Huh. Yeah. So I spent a lot of time doing that. And then there wasn't really like Blockbusters. So then there was this like Chinese video rental store. So I watched so much Wong Fei-hung, like Jet Li movies.
Okay, cool.
And then they had like old Marvel cartoons like Fantastic Four and Spider-Man. And I would rewatch those things over and over again. And then old Dragon Ball movies. Dragon Ball. And I remember always like pausing certain scenes because I just like love the action in it.
Try to...
And then so like, to sort of see how they were drawing.
Yeah.
Like, they made that mountain blow up. How did they do that? And I like just pause it. And then it was like VHS, so it was like tracking and you have to try to track it. Yeah. I'm showing my age because I'm like, oh, VHS.
Tracking with the
thing you have to rewind everything. Yeah. Remember those days?
Yeah. We had like I don't know if you had it, but because Dragon Ball Z was a big thing for me and Dragon Ball, but we had those like how to draw books. Yeah. They used to sell those, right? Where there's like, okay, you draw this first, then that, and I would like follow all of that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I did a lot of that too.
Yeah.
The drawing books I had like a Marvel one, like Draw the Marvel Way. And I think that book is still fine on Amazon. I actually wanted to buy it just because it's like nostalgic. Yeah. And then there was these books I still have. Actually, I probably have it here. It's the ones where like you can draw, like taught you how to draw like monsters. Oh, interesting. Yeah. It was like these books that I like as a kid would always try to draw these little monsters all the time. Huh. Yeah. Wow. So it's like this how you draw Dracula or the Wolfman and try to draw all that. Yeah. So it sounds like it was very just like formative, but also a bit of an escape, or like would you just pass the time with that? Like was that? It was fully an escape. Yeah, it was fully an escape because I think a lot of that was sort of me at the same time, sad and like and not sure what was happening with my family, a lot of anger issues and abandonment issues, and the drawing was definitely an escape for me. Whoa. Yeah, a lot of it was. I spent a lot of time drawing. I drew a lot of like also Ninja Turtles all the time too. I'm just like remember like all the stuff that I used to draw. I wish I had those books still.
Yeah.
But I spent like a lot of time, just drawing because I just loved it, and it was an escape out of somewhere else, especially when I created my own stories and I would draw my own characters, and it just became something that I like loved and did a lot of.
Mm-hmm. Did you show like I guess throughout like high school or I guess going into teen years, was there like a art like you displayed some kind of like talent or ability in that, and is that what kind of like pushed you into seeing it as possibly a career? And because you went to school for design, or is that what kind of like you grew up kind of having this artistic background, it developed over your teen years and kind of developed your tools, techniques, and get better, I guess, in a sense, and then into, you know, because I'm trying to go from, okay, here's this kid who just likes art to now you're, you know, giant successful freaking artist here. Like that pathway was go to school for it, kind of just follow that, I guess, trajectory of creativity and art in your life. Is that like kind of accurate, or did you get thrust into it? Was it something very different?
I mean, I was lucky in the respect that my mom encouraged it. Because I'm second generation Chinese, and so for a lot of Chinese immigrants, or just Chinese culture in general, there are just a handful of career paths that they consider to be successful.
Sure.
Like it's like, okay, you're either going to be a doctor, a lawyer, an engineer, etc. Anything outside of that is like you're a failure.
Yeah.
And so my mom knew that I loved to draw, and she encouraged me to draw. And she put me in some art classes before, like whatever she could find. And one of the art teachers that I had told me that I shouldn't go to so many art classes, because she told me that I kind of had like my own vision of things and my own way of drawing, and that like going to art classes would disturb that or change my thinking.
Switch it. Yeah.
And there isn't a wrong way to draw.
Yeah, that's cool.
And I should just like me experimenting on my own and drawing because I love it would be better for me than like learning how to technically draw things correctly.
Realism.
Yeah. It's like there's a million ways to draw an apple.
Yeah.
And I don't need to like learn how to draw an apple realistically perfectly. Like I should be able to just draw an apple the way I want to draw an apple. I think in that class I drew like a lot of dinosaurs, or like they were like dinosaur people where like they had human bodies, but then there was like a dinosaur, but it was like not the dinosaur head, it was like the dinosaur torso. They had like a torso and an arm, like a centaur. I was like,
yeah, cool.
I remember those drawings, but I drew like a lot of weird stuff, and the teacher really like admired it and saw potential. And my mom, she believed that I had potential to be an artist, and so she allowed me to continue chasing it.
Yeah. And
so she was okay with me applying to sort of like do art and go to like art college. Actually, to be honest, I didn't even know art colleges existed until I was in college. So I went to a liberal arts college, which is not an arts college.
Yeah.
I went there, and then the arts teacher there told me that I shouldn't be at this school.
Whoa, really?
And he encouraged me to apply to an art college. And so I did.
Yeah.
And that's how I ended up at California College of the Arts in San Francisco.
Wow.
But also at the same time, like when I was in high school, I started teaching myself and learning how to build websites, especially like websites using Flash, like animated websites. And so I showed some of my sites at like this convention where they kind of was like a professional convention, but also like shared student work.
Sure.
And this company was impressed with what I did, and I got hired as a designer at this design company when I was in high school. So after school, I would go to work.
Whoa, no way!
And I would get paid pretty well for like that age.
Yeah.
At that time.
Sure.
And I was doing like a lot of like design work so I did design work and designed websites for like Lexus and the Hawaii Convention. Like I designed like the first Hawaii Convention Center.
No
website
way! Wow.
When I was like 17 or something.
That's crazy.
So I did a lot. So then I was getting paid to be a designer.
Yeah.
So I was, oh great, like he's like making money and doing art.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So I was like, okay, it's cool. And then so I was like, when I went to art college, whenever I come back for the summers, I would also work at that company and do design work there.
Mm-hmm. That's cool. So you had, I mean, like in a sense, it's hard, I think, for when people don't really have something tangible to show for like their work that they've done. Like, and imagine the hobbyists who just like, you know, I like to edit videos or like just paint on the side, but it doesn't really become an option until someone says, oh, can I pay you to do this? Or, you know, like I'm just trying to think of like, I remember my first job too, of just like, I didn't even think I could do this to get money. Like I just do this for fun because I just run around with my GoPro, but someone was like, hey, just put some like product in it or something, we'll pay you. And I was like, the fuck, this is a something I can run in. So you got that kind of early, as you know, in high school. That's cool.
Yeah,
that's so cool.
I got my first opportunities. I mean, but at that time I was like a graphic designer, so I wasn't like getting paid to like type paint or anything. Like that. I was like designing websites, and some logo stuff and different things and branding. And I thought that was the way. I was like, if I wanted to be an artist as a career, like I have to get into graphic design, because being a painter wasn't gonna pay.
Sure.
Because you really believed in that starving artist.
Sure. Yeah.
Perception, and so you're like, maybe I can just paint on the side and I can be a graphic designer. And so I went to graphic design school. I was a graphic design major initially, and the one thing that turned me off is that like we would design posters, but they wouldn't let me draw. Like they had to be a photograph. And
interesting.
And so I changed my major to illustration because I wanted to draw. Yeah, so I graduated with an illustration degree. Wow! But I went through a lot of like the typography and design classes and everything like that. And so I still do like a lot of design work now, but my passion is more related to like drawing and different things and painting and etc.
It's interesting.
Yeah.
Do you think? I mean, like, I actually didn't know that about you. I didn't know you did like websites and that kind of stuff. Do you feel like? I mean, because again, it's all kind of in that creative space of like you're still making things and you're still using that creativity. Do you think? I guess like the question is like, is there a benefit to soloing in on like one type of art or creativity, or do you believe in like doing a whole bunch of different things to kind of nurture that creative spirit or something? Or is there a benefit to just being, hey, I'm only going to focus on graphic design, or I'm only going to focus on painting or something? Like what do you view?
I mean, I honestly really feel in diversifying.
Yeah,
like diversify, just try different things. And I've done that throughout my entire career, where I've tried to like make different things. Not all of it has been successful. Like I've had like a lot of failures. I've tried to start shoe companies. I've tried to start different things. And like, yeah, a lot of it didn't work out, but it's cool to see your artwork in different mediums. I think for a lot of artists, it's hard to balance fine art and being a fine artist and also being a commercial artist.
Yeah.
And there are a few artists that are able to do that do it well. One of them is James Jean. He's a friend of mine. So actually, I was talking to him last night, and he has this ability to sort of like work in the commercial realm, but also like do these amazing museum shows. And he sells out of like everything that he puts out there. And he's like, does it well, you know? And so he's always been an inspiration for me. I was a fan of his artwork in college, and so I'm lucky that now he's a friend of mine.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
And I can talk to him.
Can you explain really quick, like, for me, I don't know what's like the difference between like fine artists and commercial artists?
Okay, sure. Yeah, so there's different ways to sort of like go about it, or to explain it. And then there's like blue chip, etc. But basically, like a fine artist, you're mainly showing your work in galleries or in museums. It's usually it's your own work, and you make a living selling your artwork and people investing in your artwork, in your paintings or your sculptures or anything for that matter. A commercial artist is you're working for different brands or different corporations. Yeah. And so it's like maybe I'm doing design work for, say, Uniqlo, or I'm doing design work for Microsoft or for NBA or for whoever.
Yeah.
You know, I have a client, I'm doing work for them.
Got
They're
it.
going to use it for something, for either a marketing campaign or to put it in their store or etc. Like there's different methods that they might want to use your artwork.
Okay.
In different ways, whether for like be merchandise or for advertising, marketing.
There's like a
etc.
agenda or like kind of a goal behind the
Yeah,
art in
yeah.
a sense.
It's like you're working for a client.
Sure.
And so if you're a fine artist, like there's people that like look down upon you also doing commercial art.
Got it. Yeah, that makes sense.
Whereas like some people, very few are able to do
Both. Yeah, you live in both
Yeah.
worlds. Yeah, that's interesting. I always thought like fine artist meant like someone who just what's the word? Not pretentious.
It's hot.
Yeah, or yeah,
Sexy.
that's just like
It's fine.
Yeah, like you, pretty much. Yeah, fine artist. But like, it was always like the idea of like top shelf, or you know, like that's how I defined.
Those are
like,
called blue chip.
blue chip. Okay,
Yeah, so blue chip artists are like the top artists. Like they're selling their work for
their
like,
names are like,
for
oh,
like
I own
five
a blah blah
figures,
blah.
100,
Yeah.
6 figures.
Yeah,
They're
okay.
in all the major auctions. They're on the major like exhibitions.
Got
in all the major galleries and museums.
So that's different from like a fine artist.
But a fine artist in general
is
is someone
general.
that like is really focused on just doing the work.
Their own
and
work.
They're really showing galleries and they're not doing commercial work.
Got it. Makes sense. Okay.
Yeah.
Very cool.
But then some people are able to cross over. Like another artist is like Brendan Monroe. Like he's like doing such amazing work. He does not only public art murals, but he also does a lot of like, you know, paintings, etc. But then he gets tapped to have his artwork on like F1
Whoa.
race cars.
Yeah.
And so he's doing all of it, you know.
Yeah.
And it's great all across the board.
That's cool.
You know, so Tristan Eaton is another artist that does that. So there are a few artists that are like yeah, they've really found a way to do both. And they're not losing opportunities for like doing both, and they're not looked down upon. But there are also artists who are like, hey, I like to do both, but now I'm trying to get picked up as a fine artist, and the gallery managers and agents, etc., are like saying that I should stop doing commercial work.
Really?
Or
Because it like
also
waters down the work, other work or something?
There's
like,
even some
what's
people
the
that are like,
reason?
oh, you should also stop doing public art or like murals too.
Because it makes it less special or something.
Yeah,
shit.
when I'm like, but the mural thing is kind of weird because I'm like, well, but like some of the greatest fine artists in the world were doing murals.
Yeah.
I mean, like look at like Herring was doing a ton. You know, Basquiat did a ton. Like Diego Rivera, like all these artists were doing murals. So it's not like murals. It's more, I think, sometimes about control too. Because the way that, and I mean, like a lot of artists know this too, and this is nothing that's sort of a surprise. And I don't really exist in the fine art world as much, but there's definitely a segment of the fine art world where there's a lot of control in play. So, for example, the way it works, and it's the same way as like, you know, how like you would sort of work with other people to sort of like deal with assets like stocks, etc.
Yeah.
It's like we see potential in this artist. We have this group of curators, gallerists, collectors, etc. We're gonna buy a lot of this guy's artwork. We're gonna boost his price up.
Yeah.
And we're gonna make him famous.
Yeah. Yeah.
Then, since we bought his artwork, we can then sell it
Yeah.
for a profit.
Yeah. Yeah. Totally.
And that definitely exists.
Yeah. It's like pump and dumps for like stocks.
Yeah. It's definitely something that like happens.
Yeah.
And I know
Dang.
that, and I have friends that are like have gone through or going through it.
Yeah.
And we're always like, I always tell them like, hey, like it's an opportunity. And if you can make some money and you have a family, like,
yeah,
why not take the opportunity? And then even if like all that house is going whatever, you still can still write off that fame and still do work, you know? You know, but then sometimes they don't like the control factor of it.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And also they feel like what if it turns off like our core fan base that supported us coming up?
Yeah.
You know?
Like, oh, he sold out or something, or
Yeah. But I'm like, you know, like it's like it's hard to sort of like find that. But I'm like, you can sort of like take that and also like sort of still build. And you can always like push back on things, you know? Like if they're not letting you, perhaps like if not letting you do murals, perhaps maybe not commercial murals, but perhaps you can do murals that are for, you know, like for good. You know, like say
totally.
like I'm doing a mural for a school.
Yeah.
You know, or for a community center. You know, versus like, okay, maybe I'll turn down that mural that's for this brand.
Yeah.
You know? So I'm like, okay, we can try to find ways to make it work where you still be happy. So I'm like,
That's interesting.
let's just take some of these opportunities, but those kinds of things do exist for sure. Yeah, they do exist, and it's a matter of how you sort of like see it, or always tell them like, talk to some of the artists that found a way to sort of do both.
Yeah.
And they're able to be successful and on their own and be able to sort of like, so for myself, like I'm always trying different things.
Yeah.
Like I'll like design shoes, I'll design, stuffed animals and plushies and toys and I'll like also do work for all these different brands,
Yeah.
And then I'll still do stuff for like gallery shows, but I'm like less focused on that. I'm more interested in like sort of trying all these different
exploring.
things. Exploring.
Yeah. That's so cool.
I think that's fun. I think we have to just keep it fun and interesting. And also I tell people like at the same time, like you should at the same time, take a chance, and take that leap and try things that you haven't tried before.
Yeah.
And I think you could like learn along the way.
Yeah. You don't need to have it all figured out before you do stuff. Like,
it's like, why not? Like, I'm interested in trying to make this happen. Like, okay, why not pursue it and see where it goes? And if it doesn't go anywhere, fine, but at least you tried to make it happen.
I wanted to kind of like backstep on something you said about when certain artists feel kind of weird about becoming more renowned, or like, having money come towards their way, or like being established and having a problem with it, or like being like the certain reasons of like, why doesn't this person feel that they want that kind of recognition, or that success, or like say like they're finding success in like this artist, or these curators who want to push their art out more, and they're like, oh no, I don't want that, or they feel kind of like kind of hesitant about turning off their audience that they have or something, and that leads me to thinking of like how personal creating can kind of be for people, because they see it as like a extension of themselves or something, or like, hey, this came from me, like I don't want outside, like this is mine or something. How personal, because like I think what I make can be very personal most of the time. Like I feel so closely, I want to care for it and stuff. Like, how personal do you see your art or like your work too? Is that something you relate to, or like you see it as these reflections of yourself in a sense, and do you try to hold on to it, or are you just like, no, it is what it is, and free reign, whatever, don't care?
Yeah, I mean, I can see that. And I think, to be honest, like as artists, and I think that just across the board of like anyone that's creative and makes things and bears their soul through their art, whether it be being a director or a painter or a sculptor or a dancer, we're very sensitive individuals. I think the ability where we can like tap into ourselves and pull it out and put it into something outside of ourselves that can then be shared is difficult. Yeah. And when people don't like it or have critiques on it, it's like you see it as not them critiquing the work, but also critiquing you
yourself. Yeah, totally.
And that can be tough. And I think a lot of that was kind of pushed out of me, honestly, through art college.
Really?
Because we had a lot of constructive criticism sessions with not only our teachers, but with our fellow peers. Yeah. It was like, yes, this is good, but I think this could be better, or this is bad. And we went through a lot of that in our college. And I try my best to also, like, whenever I'm teaching, to sort of do that as well. Wow. Yeah. Because then, and definitely, like, I remember in our college, people would leave the class crying.
Really? Whoa.
I never cried. But at the same time, I also wanted to, like, prove them wrong at the same time. Sure, so I had that sort of mindset. I'm like, it's good. I think it's good still.
Yeah. Yeah. Dang. That's crazy.
Yeah, but we went through, like, a lot of that.
Yeah.
And I think it's important to sort of, like, understand that, like, constructive criticism is there to help you. And not the intent is not to destroy you. Yeah. Or to hurt you. Yeah. And sometimes it's hard to sort of see past that. Yeah. Because you can only be better by, like, failing. If you're always, like, good, then you're like, how will you ever improve?
Dude, yeah.
Right? And so, but also it's important to sort of know who you're getting that critique from. Because sometimes you're going to have all those trolls online and they're going to say stuff about your work, but, like, you don't even know who they are.
Totally. Yeah, yeah. Or, like, what have you made?
Do, like, or what they even do. Like, what qualifies them. Yeah, exactly. So understand, like, there's good constructive criticism, and there's also like trolls that you can just sort of like
Sure.
brush off.
Yeah. That's so
And
interesting.
they shouldn't affect you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The idea of like, I mean, you said something so like, it kind of like threw me off because I was like, oh man, I don't think I've ever had a situation or like an environment where something I've shared has gotten so much criticism, or like just like where I've been open and wanting criticism. Most of the time when I share something, I'm just like, I don't want to hear what anybody thinks about it. Even if you think it's good, like great. But like if you think it's bad, definitely don't tell me if you think it's bad. And I think there's a benefit because you said like, yeah, you had in art college, you had everyone kind of like sharing that, and you get so much of it. Whereas on the flip side, I don't get any of it, and it like I almost feel not spoiled, but there's like not pompous either. The word is like maybe sheltered and like, you know, sensitive to it, because even nowadays, like if I share something and someone, you know, says something bad about it, holy crap, I take it like so hard. Whereas if you get it in an environment that's or like constructive, the way you kind of did, you become not callous to, like you get used to it, and you're like, oh yeah, I can separate who I am away from that art and
it's
see it
also
objectively.
more like seeing like, okay, yeah, I see what you mean.
Yeah.
Like, okay, yeah. Composition's kind of off, the color, maybe I can probably rethink the color.
Sure.
You know, like things like that. Or even like just as a whole.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's also sort of like to know, or maybe even like to share it with people that are willing to give that to you, that you respect. Because, you know, and then with just always keeping that mindset, like, hey, this is all positive. Like it's all with the goal of helping you be better. You know, I mean, they cared enough to go through it and to give you a critique.
Sure. Yeah.
They could have. The worst is like when they don't even
say
bother.
anything. Yeah. Well, they don't even
It's
care.
like, I don't even care. Like,
That's even
like,
worse. Yeah,
whatever.
that's true.
It's like, oh, you know what? I sat around and I watched it, and I really like watched it. And I really spent time thinking about it and watching it. And I'm like, I think this could be good and this could be better. And perhaps you could change this, or for a future one, you could consider this.
Sure.
And you're like, okay, yeah. And then you have that. And you're like, next one is going to be better because you went through that process.
Yeah.
Whereas like if everything is good, then it's like, oh, okay, then I'll just keep doing the same thing. But what if it's not good? Or
and
what
you
if,
keep doing not good stuff.
You keep doing it. Yeah.
Well, that also brings me to like the second, or one of the lines actually in the film that we had was you said you don't care if anyone else likes it, as long as you like it, it's okay. So where's the line there? Because like sometimes it's like, okay, I can see where they're coming from. You know, I can see that maybe it could be a little different here, but I like it, or like, but I feel like I made that for a purpose, and whether they think it's like, is that where the line is? It's like, if it's intentional, or
I think like that's a part of it. Is sort of like when you're getting constructive criticism, with the keyword being constructive, but at the same time you can like take what you want from it. Because sometimes you're like, you know what, like I do think that's good though, but I do see what you're saying with this part of it, you know, and you can sort of like pick and choose what you want. Because one thing that happened when I was in art college is the work that I was doing, and I did all this like weird stuff when I was drawing. Like I would always draw Mr. T as like a little baby.
Baby T.
And and then he would always spend his time farming fortune cookies.
What?
And I was really inspired by like Chinese propaganda posters. So they were always like these like chubby Mr. T's, and some of them were like naked. And they would like just like run around, and then Hulk Hogan would show up, and all these like luchadors would show up, and I would like just like drew them because I thought they were funny and I liked it. And one of my teachers always said that it was like, not like, this is like not illustration, like this is not good, like you're never going to get anywhere with this stuff. And at the same time, he would tell the class that like, if you got into certain annuals, like certain books that highlighted some of the best illustrators in the world or in the country, it's like you've been validated, like you're good. And there was one in particular called Communication Arts, and they had an illustration annual every year where they would pick the best illustrations around whoever submitted. So it's a global sort of production. And people rarely get into it, but if you got into it, like
it's a big deal.
It's a big deal. In college, in my senior year, I got into it. And
drop the mic. Drop it. I
not only got one piece in it, I got like 5 in there.
Wow.
or something.
Okay.
And,
Extra big deal.
And I remember that happening, and then my illustration teacher being like, "What the hell?"
Yeah.
And
Whoa.
and I think from that point he kind of like changed the way that he like viewed my work, or he changed also the way that he like kind of taught.
He thinks. Yeah.
His thought process on like sort of that too. Because he would tell me like, oh, but he was a very like traditional illustrator.
Yeah, totally.
And so, and I was kind of like not at all. And I would take some stuff that he told me, but at the same time I was like, I still want to draw Mr. T as little baby running around naked, trying to like find fortune cookies. Like I still think that
there's something
fun.
there.
There's still something there for me. I like it.
Yeah,
and I kept still pushing for it.
Yeah.
And then it got like all of a sudden like published, and I was like, what the hell? Like, and so that's why I'm like, like you can take what you, but you can just like take what you want.
Yeah,
you know? At the end of the day, like it's your artwork. At the end of the day, but that's just also it's good to choose who
you hear from.
Yeah, it's fair. Sort of like sometimes like so sometimes I like try to like talk to people that perhaps I want to be where they're heading, or I want to emulate, or sort of
People
like that's
you kind of
the
look
path
up to.
I want to,
Yeah.
And I love their artwork, and maybe perhaps I'm talking to them versus like I don't really want to go in that direction though.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I think that's a discernment of like, okay, where or who is this coming from, and do they have kind of like what I want, or
exactly. Yeah, it's like maybe for you it's like, I would listen to Wong Kar-wai, but perhaps I wouldn't listen to Michael Bay.
Yeah.
And Michael was like, so I'm like, no, I'm not trying
more
to
explosions.
Like, you need more explosions.
more
you need more
balloon.
camera angles, more spinning. And it's like, no, I'm not trying to like do that.
Yeah.
But whereas like, okay, Wong Kar-wai said that the color.
Yeah.
I could work on contrast. I'm like, okay, I'll think about that.
How often are you still? I guess learning is the best way, because like I watch master classes all the time, or like just like kind of little things to try to improve my craft. Are you still in like learning or improving that way, or is there certain things that you pick up and try to internalize?
I think like you, I think we're both like knowledge addicts.
Yeah.
And
totally.
I spend a lot of time like watching videos and like trying to learn things, or if I don't know how to do it, I'm like looking it up and seeing how do you do that stuff. It's the same. Jiu-jitsu, you're like, I suck at this. Like I want to watch all these instructionals.
Yeah.
How do I get out of side control? And so like we spent a lot of time sort of thinking about that.
Yeah.
And
but so for art, like are you?
For art, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, very much so. Skillshare, Domestika. Actually, my friend works for Masterclass.
Oh yeah.
But then they do it differently now, right? It's like a subscription now, right? Versus like, because I actually bought,
I think it's like a membership type of thing.
Yeah, because before it wasn't that. You would like buy classes, and
individually.
Yeah, I bought the Aaron Sorkin screenplay class.
Oh, cool. Yeah. I've actually no, I haven't watched all the way through, but they have a Scorsese one too. I haven't been in like. What's funny is like the term master class has been thrown around so much lately. Though,
so it's not that you're
not just master class. I mean, I have watched again like Scorsese's one, but there's plenty of different like courses, just like things that for my editing software, like my coloring things, like I'm just like watching for hours of just
I saw that. I'll watch like all these Illustrator tutorials and Photoshop. Yeah, it's
cool.
And I'm like, what is this? I mean, I don't really like believe in AI, or I don't. There's certain things about AI that are a problem for artists.
Sure.
At the same time, I'm also want to be open to it, and like I'm also still like learning about it as well.
Yeah.
So I spend my time also like was like, what is this new? Like I'm trying to like keep my just head in the game on like new tech.
Sure.
And AI is new tech, but I know that with the scraping and how it's being used, like it is a problem. But at the same time, I'm also sort of learning more about it as well. I don't really apply to my artwork at all, outside of it trying to fix my grammar and my writing. So I'm like, fix this grammar.
Yeah.
ChatGPT.
Yeah, totally.
But other than that, like I don't really like use it for art.
Yeah.
Other than it's more like writing help.
Yeah, totally. Like the things that you don't want to, I guess, devote too much time to. I use it to like compose emails sometimes too.
Yeah.
I'm like, hey, like this is what I want to say. Make something sound cool about it.
The only time I use it for artwork is when I'm like, I'm kind of stuck on an idea. Like I'll write in something like what I'm trying to do, and then I'll spit something. I'm like, this is not what I was looking for at all.
Yeah.
This is not it,
dude. I've used it for travel itineraries too. Like I'm planning our honeymoon right now for me and my wife. We still haven't gone on it yet, but
we haven't gone on ours. It's been like 13 years.
13 years. But it's crazy. You can just kind of like put in, I want like a 2-week European kind of like trip around Switzerland and Italy, and it just like everything from like places to stay, things to do, like the prices of all of it, and it's just like you could like one click on everything, have a whole thing done. And that's like stuff that my brain, I want to use AI for like things that my brain just that I don't want to spend time doing, honestly, like because I'm kind of lazy that way. But yeah, it's so easy. Yeah, it's interesting thinking of like using it for creative practices, and like the same things we can apply. Like maybe there's things that I feel are redundant and like I don't want to use up my energy to do. I'll use AI to like sort through clips or something, or like
exactly
stuff like that.
I think that stuff is good.
It
was more like I think where like it gets morally gray or it becomes a big issue is when it scrapes existing artwork. Someone made this it kind of likened it to buying 10 pizzas and squishing it all together and saying that you made this pizza. It's like, that's kind of like what at least art AI does.
Sure.
I think different, like Adobe and different things are like saying like, we don't do that. Like we're not using other people's artwork, etc. We're trying to find a way where it's not, abusing creativity and artist rights. And trying to like find some happy ground between everyone. So I'm like, but then whenever I use it, I'm like, it always does stuff that I don't even want it to do anyways. I'm always like, I can't even use this.
That's fair. It's not at the place where it's like...
it's like, it's done, like, I'm like, I will never use this.
Yeah, that's fair. It's interesting you bring up the idea of like, okay, if it's smashing together a bunch of different pizzas to make another pizza, what's kind of scary, and that's almost in a weird way like what artists do anyway. You're taking your own kind of ideas and like maybe merging, or like one method of it, right? It's like merging these ideas and like putting it, all these like Frankenstein pieces together to make something completely different. It's like, well, if you have something else that can do that too.
I think the issue is more
interesting
that like it smashes it, and then you're like, okay, here, it's done. Versus like us smashing it and being like, sure. I'm inspired by this, and this. I'm gonna take this and make this.
That's fair.
Which is like, it got squished process. And it's like, okay, here's my own piece. It's like,
do you think it'll get?
I'm like gonna give this.
But
to
what
you.
if it gets to the point where it can like it develops that, and it's like, ooh, maybe I like this AI likes this, or this AI doesn't like.
So far I'm like, it's like looks so weird. Like, what is this thing that I made?
And then AI explains like, no, I intentionally made it look weird like that, and then it becomes art. And then you have crypto guys buying all. And then NFTs.
We're already seeing it, like we saw the recently, I forgot what it was. It was like a recent auction, and the painting was painted by a robot, and it sold for a lot. So we're sort of seeing that happen. And then also there's artists that I'm really interested in, because it's not sort of scraping, but they program machines to paint. And then like sometimes like looks really cool. So I think some of that stuff is really interesting when they're trying to like really like find ways to like meld technology and art together. It's not scraping anything. It's more just like bridging programming and electronics and tech with art. Some people do some really interesting stuff with that.
There's a weird, I don't know why this came up though, but I had a weird thought about like, do you see creativity as like sacred? Or like the kind of like the process behind it is like,
no, not at all. No, because I think that's also can be very subjective as to what is sacred, because we had that issue with photography. So when cameras first started coming out and people started taking photographs, they were like, this is not art. Everyone looked down on it because they saw it as like the machine doing the work versus
an artist. Whoa.
And so no one would accept photography as artwork, and it took a long time for it to be validated as art. And now we see photography as art completely. And so I just think that it takes time, and it should be like, I mean, going back to like, hey, there is sort of like this like moral issue with like AI, but we should like also find ways, like we're always trying to find ways to like sort of bridge tech and art. I use Photoshop and Procreate, and I use iPads and stuff to help me.
Yeah.
And I'll use a projector sometimes to help me put up a mural. So there are ways where like tech can be a tool and a resource and a way to sort of, like you were saying, like there's certain software and tools that can help me sort of sort clips, and versus you, so that you have time to do the creative work versus you sitting around and doing this like monotonous work.
Sure.
And so there is like stuff where like it can help us achieve our vision.
Yeah.
And we should be open to that and learn from it and include it as part of our toolbox of things.
Yeah, totally.
And so I'm not against it. I'm actually sometimes like very much interested in it, because then, especially when you're doing murals, like we're looking at new tech that comes up for contractors versus like for artists. So, like, oh shoot, they created this new paint sprayer. This will help us cut time in terms of painting the wall. Like I'm going to be like, I'm not, it's not so secret like we have to roll this wall with the roller. I'm like, dude, totally. They have this thing where I can like do it in like 30 minutes versus like 5 hours.
I'm going to do that.
I'm going to like get that thing.
Yeah. No, that's fair. That's really cool. Do you think though, there's, the term nostalgia came to mind when that happened, because again, you talk about like, there's all these advancements that can come out and improve our workflows and like make things like easier or better and just like more efficient. But then there, like, again, nostalgia came up to me, because then it's like, okay, what if the art's goal is to impact someone or like draw some kind of just emotion or a response from someone from it. I'm bringing up, I've been obsessed with Arcane lately. And if you look at kind of like their style of animation, and it's groundbreaking, but there's also a feeling of like, you've seen it before, like the nostalgic kind of like animation style, or like the hand feel organic of everything. Like it's super futuristic and like groundbreaking stuff, but there's something familiar and nostalgic to it. So do you think like that's kind of a just something that naturally happens throughout like progression of technology and art and creativity, where you can have all of these really interesting, cool technological advancements that helps things out, but do we naturally as humans always just kind of gravitate more towards whatever it is that makes us feel something cool, or like that we get like inspired and drawn to, I
mean, animation is definitely like an interesting case study, right? It's like when Pixar first came out and when they started pushing out like sort of computer graphics and 3D graphics for like film and animations, their goal was to like make everything as realistic as possible. Sure. It's like, oh, how do we like render everything so it like looks super real? Like, let's make this water look amazing, this grass look amazing. Like this, how do we make like fur look like fur in Monsters Inc.? Then at some point it was like, oh, but then what if we can still use this technology, but then make it look like a 2D cartoon? And the Japanese were doing it a lot with cell shading, which kind of like didn't look so good, because it was just sort of texturing 3D objects with like, flat 2D mapped things. So it kind of like, it still looked 3D, but it didn't look so like, it looked like more like a video game than it did look like a 2D cartoon. And so they spent a lot of time trying to figure out how to make the 3D animation like seamless with 2D animation, which they're doing a lot of with like Demon Slayer, Chainsaw Man, etc., where they're trying to find ways, and that's also ways for them to also streamline their workflow. Totally. It's like versus us like drawing this train, like can't we just like build it and then, or even find like models of it and just like skin it, but then find a way where like it looks like it's also 2D animated and not this like 2D drawn character on like a 3D object. And then also trying to find out for both. And so Arcane is one is like, I think with that and with like Love, Death and Robots, I think it was called, and also with Spider-Verse, they were trying to find ways to find not only like it doesn't look so 2D, but it's like this mixture of 2D and 3D, a combination of it. And like you saw it in like Puss in Boots and different things where they kind of like created this style and this like aesthetic that kind of blended both. I think it's really interesting, sort of like they kind of steered away from like, let's make this look super real to like, let's make this like look more stylized, but also this like cool, interesting, create this like look of like this melding of 2D and 3D. And I think that's just, people, part of it is like, we still love 2D animation. And that's why 2D animation is still really popular to this day. We're still going to watch the Studio Ghiblis, and we're still going to watch cartoons, and there's still like a lot of amazing 2D out there. Like a lot of anime is still 2D, and some of it's like amazing.
Yeah.
But then like trying to find a way to do both has been interesting. So yeah, I think nostalgia is part of it because we kind of like just grew up with like 2D animation.
Sure. Yeah.
And then the new generation hasn't.
It's going to be totally something. Yeah.
And so it's cool that like artists and designers are like, hey, let's try to find a way to sort of create also like, and it's cool that like people create new styles and people are like, oh yeah, this like, let's do more of this. Like this deserves like an award.
That's so cool to like explore those things of like the stuff that's not been made or different styles, but you recognize it and it's like, oh, that feels right for some reason.
Yeah.
And yeah,
but I think it took a long time for them to get it to that point.
Yeah, totally.
Because there's definitely like a lot of cartoons. Even if you look at old Netflix ones, you're like, whoa.
Yeah.
I was like, this doesn't look so good.
But that brings up to the point of what you just said of like, maybe it's because we grew up with it that we find it as so sentimental and special that like when we see a 2D thing now, maybe it's because we've had that implanted into us, or like we grew up around it. Is that like, maybe I think that could be a thing.
Well, also I think part of it too is like sometimes recognizing that 2D animation should still exist, like that it's not something that's old, and it's back to this.
Back on the auto-tune.
Yeah, it's not something
Felt
that's
right to me.
That's like dated, and that we can still like, you can still make advancements in 2D animation, or that some 2D animation is still amazing. Like go watch like Ghost in the Shell or Akira.
Yeah.
It's like those guys, that whole thing is painting.
Timeless. Yeah.
And or even like old Disney cartoons, right? Mm-hmm. Like there's still something special about all that.
Yeah.
And to sort of recognize like, hey, that's not like 2D animation is not old. Just like us with like, in art, like painting is not an old medium. People are still making advancements, or people are still painting and still making it feel fresh and look cool. Yeah. And they're still experimenting with it. So I think that's still a part of it as well. It's like, hey, let's always be open to experimentation and see
that's cool.
where it takes us. And maybe, it'll turn out bad, but at the same time, maybe it'll come out amazing. But we have to sort of like take that leap first and see where it goes.
You got to be open to it and just like explore. And that's why there's some like amazing directors that do that too, right? They're like, I'm going to try. Like, Wong Kar-wai is a good example. Yeah. So I'm going to color this totally different than like anything else that anyone has ever done. Yeah. And you're like, oh wow, that actually like works well, Or like Wes Anderson's, I'm going to make everything like feel like this. It's like no one's ever done a movie like this though. Yeah. And you're like, oh wow, that actually like looks good, and let's keep doing it. Yeah. There's no right or wrong to it, right? It's like,
it's all just artists, like creatives, just trying different things. And that's great that people still want to experiment and try different things. That things don't feel, at least like, it doesn't feel stagnant. Yeah,
like it's kind of moving in some
and I think
weird
especially
direction.
In this day and age too, it's like, it's great that like creatives are still experimenting and trying different things. And I think it's important because then I think for artists and for creatives in general, like we kind of like speak for generations, like we kind of, and we're taking the tools and different things, and it's great that we have so much of it now, that we have so much access to it now compared to before. Yeah. Because before, to a degree, like there's like art has become less accessible. At the same time, to a degree, it also become more accessible.
How would you say less accessible?
It's you see it less in schools.
Oh, okay.
It's being taught less.
Sure. Yeah.
The programs are being cut more, and so access to learning it, access to earlier was saying like people not being able to like go to museums or there's no galleries, and so there's less exposure to it on like a day-to-day level. But there's more access to it through technology. We can go on YouTube and learn how to paint and do artwork. Yeah. We can, go to all these different sites and different things. We can connect to each other. We can share our artwork more easily than before. Yeah. So there's more access in that regard. But there's less access in other regards too. Okay. Yeah.
Oh, that makes sense.
Like it's sometimes like, so then we still need to like digitally, it's more accessible, but in real life, the real world, like our surroundings has become less.
That's fair. Yeah, that's actually, now that I think about that, because everything like if you think about it, I'm consuming it all through my phone. Like most of the art, 90% of it is like on a screen in front of me.
Yeah.
Oh, that's
versus like
weird.
it being like all around us.
Yeah, true.
Yeah.
And then bringing again, like you bringing people together. Like there's not too many of those like opportunities now, or just like it's becoming like less and less.
That's why I feel so special
like.
to sometimes to do these festivals, because we
Yeah.
can get people together.
Yes.
And we come together as artists, as creatives, and we're creating something in the physical world together.
Yeah.
As a group, and those can be very special experiences.
Yeah, true.
But that's why I think people also like are really becoming more interested in like immersive experiences. Like you're seeing that now with like, oh, I went to the Museum of Ice Cream, like that was great. Or like I went to Team Lab Planets, or I went to one of their installations, you know, in Japan or elsewhere. People like really like,
and they're enjoying that.
And they're enjoying those because they can experience it outside of their devices.
Yeah.
Because then you get feel and sound, and you get all your other senses activated versus just sound and visual, like just your sight. Yeah. Yeah.
I'm gonna take a little sidestep here. Well, it's not really a sidestep because it still ties into everything, but I feel like in every podcast I've done lately, like jiu-jitsu has come up in every single one, and that's how we've kind of connected too.
Yeah.
But seeing like the parallels, and I've talked to Coach Jason about this too because he was on previously, but the parallels of like, it's never to me, you know, doing a project on a creative who also does jiu-jitsu. I feel like we have like the same minds, how you said we're like knowledge obsessed almost, of just like figuring out how to do these things. The overlap of like creative brain and jiu-jitsu, and like you've become obsessed with it obviously. What's like what is it, how would you like describe your relationship with jiu-jitsu and what it's done for you? Because like, again, coming from creative mind, it probably does the similar things for me, I feel like. Or what's that for you though?
Yeah, I think it's done like a number of things. One, I've trained in martial arts like all my life.
Oh really?
Yeah, I trained in Kung Fu for like,
oh no way,
since I was a kid.
Whoa.
Mostly like Shaolin, Hung Gar, Choli Fut.
Holy.
And I lion danced through my childhood, like
Wow.
Chinese New Year.
Yeah.
So I've always been interested in martial arts. I think a big part of it was like growing up idolizing Bruce Lee and Jet Li and Jackie Chan.
Yeah.
And so learning Kung Fu was more, to me, cultural. It was like learning a sort of a cultural part of my own sort of ethnicity and my own history.
Yep.
But I've never, when I was learning Kung Fu, I never felt like I could apply it in real life. That like if I ever got into a fight, I'd probably get killed.
Really?
Because a lot of it to me felt like dance.
Like movements or something.
Movements,
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, maybe I can like scare them by doing it, but then I think if they attacked me, like I wouldn't make it.
I guess you don't really see Kung Fu in like UFC or like
not at all, right?
Actual street fighting or something. Yeah.
I mean, it's like Kung Fu in a lot of ways is sort of like the seed of a lot of martial arts through Asia. Like it kind of started through Kung Fu, and it kind of went to different cultures, and it got adapted and changed different ways. Yeah. Sort of like language, the Chinese language is seen through Japanese and Korean, etc.
Yeah.
But so I think when I started doing jiu-jitsu, I was like, the reason why we originally did it is for our daughters. Because we like, okay, these kids need like self-defense skills, because every female that we know has had an experience. And we want to make sure that when some guy tries something with our daughters, it's going to be a very bad day for that guy.
Yeah, it's good. Yeah.
And that was the reason why we wanted them to learn, and also helps to build confidence and teaches them how to move their bodies. Then my wife started getting really interested by watching the kids do it. And so then she started training, and I started training because out of fear for my life at home. I thought I was going to be attacked by all my kids and all the women in the house, and I need to defend myself against them, which made sense because one day when I was eating cereal, my wife tried to rear naked choke me while I was eating cereal, and I was just trying to enjoy my breakfast, and she was trying to kill me. So at least I knew how to like
defend yourself,
so I could finish my cereal and not be dead in my milk. And so
it's a circle of life.
But I think jiu-jitsu does a number of things outside of like making you feel more confident and making you feel more confident with your body and how it moves, and also like making you feel comfortable in uncomfortable situations was a big thing about it.
Yeah.
Especially when you're starting off, it's
Yeah.
like all you're doing is getting smashed
Yeah.
every day.
Yeah.
And like learning how to like get out of those situations, or learning how to like be comfortable in
okay
it, where you
with
can
it.
like be okay with it, where you can think through it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which for me took a while to be like, hey, I'm stuck here. What can I do?
Yeah.
Versus like, I'm stuck here. I want to like keep pushing and like,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, until I can maybe get something, even though like none of that actually works.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And so, but I think for me, like a big thing is that it also, it's great bonding, not only with our kids, but with my wife and I.
Mm.
So my wife and I, Amy, we've been training together since we started, and we were talking about it, and we're like, jiu-jitsu really can help a marriage. It sounds kind of crazy,
Really?
but I think it can.
Yeah.
The reason why is because we rarely have alone time, and even more so if we're going on a date, we rarely have alone time without devices where it's just the two of us.
Yeah. Yeah.
And when you're training in jiu-jitsu, that's all you have.
Yeah,
like
yeah.
I'm not gonna
Not distracted by anything
Like
else,
we're gonna spend at least an hour or more training, and the phone is like away. Like no one's keeping it in their pockets. There's no pockets. And so, and it requires a lot of communication and a lot of trust. Because even when we're drilling, we're learning how to do movements that can like choke us out or kill us or break a bone.
Yeah.
So you need to train with people or drill people that you trust, because then you don't want to get hurt.
Yeah.
And you know that, like, you know, people in your, I mean, everyone knows like there's this, no one
Yeah.
wants to drill with this guy.
That
'cause
guy's-
that guy, it's
yeah.
gonna be like, they go so hard.
Yeah.
It's supposed to be drilling, not trying to like break my arm.
Mhm.
And so it requires a lot of communication and trust, right?
Yeah.
And even when we're then sparring each other, same.
Mhm.
Like I'm not gonna pull an armbar or like pull like some kind of omoplata or something. Like I'm not gonna.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to hurt anyone.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you have to be able to trust someone to be able to roll with them.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so
That's cool.
And so we roll a lot. Amy and I like roll together a lot.
Yeah.
And it's nice to sort of like be able to do that and to have that time.
Mm.
And then since we're coming up and learning together, then, you know, we'll like try to do different moves or experiment or try different things.
Yeah. You're learning and teaching each other almost.
Yeah. And also we both help to coach the kids' classes,
Yeah.
which is also great to sort of like be able to give back and teach and see these kids progress in that form. And also, you know, be there and also teach our kids at the same time too.
Yeah.
So I think that became important.
That's cool.
To us as well
Yeah.
as a big part of it. So I always encourage people like, yeah, you should go. We're like, no, if I go with my wife or my
Take your
family,
wife.
it's going to be so bad.
Yeah.
But I'm like, but I think like over time, like, yeah, it helps.
Yeah.
And also for Amy too, like as a female, like it helps to build confidence as
Yeah.
when you're like out on your own, like, okay, I'm walking through this dark parking lot.
Totally.
I don't feel scared.
Yeah. You can.
You know, you feel like if something was to happen, like at least I have some skill
Some
sets
kind of
to be
foundation.
able to get away.
Yeah.
I'm not saying
yeah.
like, oh,
You're
gonna be
gonna
able to,
tap the guy out, or
tap
you're
a guy out
gonna-
right in
yeah,
the
yeah.
parking lot. But no, at least you have some movement or skill sets to be able to like get away from them to find help.
Totally. Yeah.
Versus
You're
like being
equipped.
stuck. Like it's like,
Yeah.
oh, if that guy mounted you or
You know what to do.
like,
Yeah.
like, you can triangle that dude or get all that.
Yeah.
You can easily get out of a mount that of some guy that doesn't know how to do jiu-jitsu. Like that's like no problem.
I remember, I don't know what, I might have been a Rogan podcast. I don't really listen to a lot of Rogan, but like he did say like, yeah, even just having a little bit of foundation of jiu-jitsu puts you so far ahead of like the person who doesn't know any at all. And like, it's worth having just like a small, you know, like the foundation there, just a little bit of it. You don't need to
like,
be,
you know how it is when you like roll with a guy that hasn't done it before.
yeah, exactly.
You're like, oh,
you could toy
you're like,
with,
was I like this?
yeah.
It's like, oh,
Yeah.
it's so easy to control
And you
someone.
can just toy with them,
Yeah.
because they have no idea.
Yeah.
So yeah, and it doesn't take a lot. It's just like
Yeah.
a little bit of it.
Yeah,
is
it's
really
like even
good.
like learning how to like breathe, you know, and learning how to like breathe through it and see and
kind of relax,
or just like
where you
relax, or
need
just like
to.
hold, exactly, like not being tense like all the time.
That's a cool perspective, I guess, on hearing about how it's helped you and Amy, because that's like when I first started, that wasn't even part of like what drew me to it, or like still isn't, because my wife doesn't train with me, but that's cool to hear it come from a place that's not quite selfish, because like for me it was like, oh man, it was like chess, and like I got addicted to chess too at one point, where I was just like,
Yeah,
man, I need to learn this, and it became like an obsession because it scratches like that part of my brain of like, I want to get this right, and I want to know how to do it right, and do it that way. But to hear it from family and like your daughters and wife that's a really cool perspective that I like.
That's been like one of the main reasons why we continue doing it. Also, I think another thing is that both my wife and I work out a lot.
Mm-hmm.
We started working a lot and eating healthy when her around the time when like her mom passed. We started like rethinking our habits because we wanted to be around for our kids.
Yeah.
And so we kind of like adjusted our lifestyles to just be more healthier. And so we started working on and exercising like a lot. And it's great to sort of exercise and work out for a purpose.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, I'm going to like do this and stuff, and this will give me more endurance for the rolling,
totally.
or this will make me stronger to doing this or doing that, or such. Or I'm working to be more flexible so I can like do this. Versus like I just want to be more flexible.
Sure.
It's like, no, I'm trying to be more flexible so I can like invert.
So
better.
You can, yeah. There's purpose behind it.
Or like so then if someone's trying to like smash passers or do something like doesn't feel uncomfortable when they're trying to bring my legs over my head.
Yeah.
I'm like, I'm okay.
That was also like always an issue I had with like just lifting weights too. Because I'm just like, what's my end goal here? Or like, what's the purpose behind it? And I know people find it all the time, but like, I think after a while, I was just like, man, I think I'd rather have more fun or just like get something more out of it because I'm stimulating my brain by like working out and going to roll and train
because
with
I think
people.
like someone that's working out, like you're so focused. And at least in the beginning, it was like it's like very like it's centered around vanity.
Yeah, totally.
It's like I want the abs, I want the pecs or whatever. Totally. Now it's more like I need a stronger core because I need to be able to do this.
Yeah. To continue doing the things that I do.
Exactly. Like I don't want to be able to. I want to just be able to shoot up and get into this position versus like getting on my elbow.
I'm getting to that point. I think that just comes with getting older. Honestly, I'm like I care less about what I look like. I just want to feel good and like be able to perform.
Exactly. I mean, I've gone through some like bad injuries too.
Yeah.
And so it's also like learning how to like be more mindful in the way I move too. Yeah. So to avoid those injuries.
Yeah, that's cool.
Has been important too.
Yeah, totally. Longevity, right?
Yeah, longevity. Yeah, that's why I'm like, today I don't feel that like I'm not gonna.
Yeah.
Roll. Or like that guy,
dude,
rolls hard. I'm like not gonna roll with that guy.
You know what's funny is I've only been training like 2 years, but I'm already I feel like I'm at a point now where I was going like maybe 4 or 5 times a week, and I was like, oh man, I'm just gonna learn super quick, and I kept up that pace for like a long time, and I feel like it was good for me. But then, like nowadays, I'm like okay with just doing like once a week or like twice a week where I want to, like I feel myself like I want to go train today, but I know I have all these other responsibilities, whereas before I was like I had all this other stuff I needed to do, and I still carved out time to go train. But I feel like there, at least in my journey so far, is like you know, you can kind of get away with, you know, maybe once or twice a week is okay and it's enough. Because again, like different goals of like longevity, I want to continue to do this for more years, whereas in the beginning it was just like I want to learn super fast, I want to get it all down, because
you feel like you're playing catch up too with
you're going against other people who are really strong or know what they're doing. So that's fair. That's a fair point.
But it's been interesting. I think like also like, you know, they always say it's consistency, right? Like as long as you continue doing it, because even with us, like when we started till now, there's definitely been like a lot of people that we used to train with that are no longer
kind of dropped out.
A lot have dropped out.
Yeah, totally.
So it's to be like as long as you're consistent, regardless of how much time you have, you know, as long as you're coming in and learning and trying.
Again, I think that comes down to like their goals or what they wanted out of it, right? And it's like, okay, mine changed from I want to learn and get super good at it super fast, and now it's like I just want to keep doing it. I want to be able to continue to do that. So
exactly. Yeah,
that's cool. Do you have other outlets that you like kind of spend your time doing? You play video games?
Yeah, I play like a lot of video games. Yeah.
What's your favorites?
I mean, like my favorites. I mean, growing up, one of the video games that probably affected me, and I still remember to this day, is like Final Fantasy VII. That's always been the one.
Did we ever bond on this? Did we ever talk about this? No way.
Yeah, I grew up like just like loving that game.
No way. I'm upset. Yeah, that's like.
So I haven't got a chance to play Final Fantasy VII Rebirth.
The Rebirth, dude.
I haven't. I rented it, so I'm like waiting for it to come in. I'm gonna play it.
Yeah. Oh man.
Yeah, I played like Final Fantasy VII was like I think, and then
how did we not bond about that? That's like my all-time like I
have a tattoo of Barrett on my leg.
No way. Wait, show it. Is it hidden?
No, it's right here.
Dog. I want to get a tattoo of like Clouds, you know, the wolf from I'm like big. Yeah, he has like the wolf It was in Advent Children. No, not like actual
Yeah,
seven. But I wanted to
the
get
movie.
the wolf crest that he had, or like a Buster Sword too. Or
Yeah, I
something.
played like a lot of Final Fantasies, but then that's the one that kind of stuck in my
Dude,
head
same.
all these
That's
years.
crazy.
I
Yeah,
can barely
yeah.
even remember the other ones
Yeah.
that I played.
Yeah.
Outside of that one, like I love the God of War series. It's amazing.
Okay. I could never get into those.
Last of Us 1 and 2 are like
Yeah.
they're like masterpieces.
Okay.
The Drake's Uncharted, those are also
Uncharted,
masterpieces as well, in my opinion.
Yeah. Absolutely.
I like some of the Assassin's Creed ones, but they do get really monotonous after a while.
So these are all role playing. You're an RPG guy.
I'm a third person. Like I don't like to play first person.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
First person gives me motion sickness. I'll play like Call of Duty and be like, okay, I don't feel good. And I'll play VR. I'm like, oh my god, this is like too much.
Yeah.
But then so I need like third person, and so Grand Theft Auto, of course.
Yeah. Totally.
Grand Theft Auto. I played it since it was like the top down version.
Wow. Yeah. GTA 1.
Yeah, the first ones. Yeah. So
I remember playing those too. Yeah.
Red Dead Redemption. That's
RDI.
masterpiece.
Good stuff.
Yeah. Right now I'm playing Helldivers 2, which I kind of suck at, but it's kind of fun to play.
Yeah.
Except that like Amy's like, okay, dinner. I'm like, I can't come downstairs. I'm playing with other people. They're relying on me.
Yeah.
I have to revive them. I can't let them down.
She's shaking her head over there. That's funny. I feel that I've never played any like online multiplayer or anything, but I just started playing League, and I'm getting my first taste of like half hour to 45-minute games, and I'm like, I don't know if I can commit to this. Yeah,
I can't leave right now.
Yeah, and my wife gets like really mad at me, but I think it'll change.
I was like, I can't do anything right now because these people.
Yeah,
it's like I'm playing with people.
Yeah, that's funny. Oh man, I'm still kind of stuck on Final Fantasy VII. I've already beaten Rebirth, that's why, and I'm going through it to 100%.
Did you play the remake one too?
I played the first remake.
Okay, yeah, I didn't play the remake one.
You have to play that before you do Rebirth, because they're sectional. It's like the 3 discs. So
okay, yeah, because I'm getting Rebirth, and I was like, oh, shoot, I need to get remake as well.
You need to play remake first.
But remake is just the same, right, as Final Fantasy VII.
It's the first, so the 3 discs. So the remake is the first disc, Rebirth is going to be the second, and then whatever the third one's going to be the third. So it's all the way up until they leave Midgar, the city. So you have to you need to play remake before you play Rebirth.
Okay, I thought that maybe they were like kind of like that remake was the same exact thing as the first.
It's the first section of the story.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
It's not like, okay.
And it's incredible.
But I'm not going to bother leveling up.
No, you have to just to beat the game.
No, but I'm not going to bother leveling up that girl that ends up. Because I spent a lot of time leveling her up in the original game. And
actually, I'm so excited for you to play it because.
And I was like, what the hell?
Yeah. No, I'm excited for you to play this because I think they might do some different stuff. I'll just leave that there for you to.
Okay.
Don't look up any spoilers. But
okay, I'll get remake then. I think I'll just buy that one because I was like renting it, but I rent from GameFly.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
But then they never have remake available.
Oh, really?
People must I don't know. It's like there's like low quantity. I'm like,
it's probably cheap at this point.
But then Rebirth is like super available. But I think I can just buy it online. So it's
and it's been around for years now. It's probably on the cheaper side, like maybe $30.
Yeah.
But
I like to play also like the NBA 2Ks as well.
2Ks? I haven't played that in a long time, but
and the UFC ones are fun too because they have jiu-jitsu in it.
Oh yeah, yeah. So you're practicing.
I do that, but I'm like they do it so slowly. I'm like, by the time you get a triangle, in, it takes so long. It takes so long to do a triangle. What's wrong with you?
Yeah. That's funny. That's true.
They're like step by step. I'm like, what?
Yeah, no fluidity to it. You should just break them all down. Cool, man. I don't want to take up too much of your time. I think we had a pretty awesome conversation. Is there any what kind of fun stuff do you have going on? Is there any future? I mean, you guys are still doing Worldwide Walls and Hawaii Walls.
So we're working on the next festival, which is going to be next September. Mm-hmm. We're keeping it in Kalihi because we really want to support that community.
Yeah, so cool.
And we will probably be next year also doing festivals in Japan. And maybe I could talk to the team, but maybe perhaps DC, San Jose, and also Doha, Qatar.
Yeah.
And we are also trying to make another big exhibition happen in Hawaii, which I wanted to talk to you about as well.
Yeah, for sure.
But we have meetings.
Miami.
But I'm not going to talk too much about it because it's not cemented yet.
Yeah.
I also have some projects coming out that are that I signed NDAs for, so I can't talk about it until it comes out.
Yeah.
But I also have some projects
excited.
that I didn't, and some of it is actually like, what's has been interesting. Like as I have been doing jiu-jitsu, I get more like jiu-jitsu
More jiu-jitsu
work.
stuff. Yeah, dude.
So
Yeah.
I like designed I designed the gi years ago
Yeah.
with Hyperfly that I designed before I did jiu-jitsu.
Oh, really?
So I didn't really understand it.
Yeah.
So I kind of apply a lot of more like kung fu mentality to it. But I designed a gi recently with Pawa Collective that sold out,
So sick.
and I'm working on like a series, a bunch of rash guard kits with Hyperfly.
Yeah.
And so those should be coming out soon-ish.
Sick.
We're still going through that process of like getting them produced and manufactured, but those be coming out. Also talking to Hyperfly about doing another key, and also doing another key with Pawa. So I've been working a lot with Pawa Collective.
That's so cool.
And with Hyperfly.
Yeah.
I'm friends with Bear at Shoyoro, so I saw him in Vegas. And what's funny is that like I've known Bear for a little while, and he's even like giving me like clothes.
Oh, really?
But I never felt comfortable wearing Shoyoro
Because you're not a
clothes because I
jiu-jitsu
didn't
guy.
jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
So I was always like, I can't wear this. Like it's just like if I wear this, like will people try to like
think you're
challenge
gonna-
me
Yeah.
to a fight on the streets or call me out on it? So I
Yeah.
never like wore it. Even he like gave me a bunch of stuff. Like I could never wear it because I just didn't train. Now that I train, like it's different now. But yeah, so it's really interesting, sort of like being a part of doing jiu-jitsu, but also being a part of the jiu-jitsu industry in terms of like the fashion side of it as well. So it's cool to sort of like understand like, are we trying to do an IBJJF like
approved.
competition comp gi,
comp gi.
which is so
The
there's so many parameters around
yeah.
it. Like you really can't do much to it.
Yeah.
Or are we doing something that's more for training and for like or life, or trying to bridge training and lifestyle? Like can we wear this kimono as like a lifestyle piece and also like in the gym too?
Yeah.
Can we do it? It's something that can exist on like both levels, and experimenting with that. I mean, like Danaher wears rash guards. Like
as
he
shirts.
doesn't even like wear a normal shirt.
Yeah.
So
It's
I'm
efficient
like,
to him.
Yeah. So I don't know if it's because it's so tight. Like I feel like it's inefficient because it's so tight.
I don't know what his reasoning is. I think it's.
I guess like if you're caught in
I think it was
a
like
fight on the
if
street,
he has
you're
a
ready.
split second, like he doesn't have any kind of distraction or like things that would trip him up,
Yeah,
just in case.
exactly. Yeah.
I know he carries knives around him all the time too. That's why he's obsessed with knives.
Interesting character. But yeah, so
That's cool.
there's so I'm doing all that stuff as well. So I have some stuff coming out that are like jiu-jitsu related, and then some other projects that are sort of like in the works.
It's so interesting you say that, like, since you started jiu-jitsu, like work, or you just start, it just kind of like seeps into other parts of your life. And I 100%, like, my last 4 projects that I've done have been like people that I've met through jiu-jitsu or like just have ties to it, and it's like, man, I did not expect it to have as much of a seep into everything else in my life than it has, but it has, which is just, it's kind of, I guess, encouraging to hear that it's done that with other
It's been
creatives.
interesting.
Yeah.
I mean, because I've met like a lot I've met a lot of people through jiu-jitsu, which has been really, really cool. Jiu-jitsu people are also like some of the most hygienic people in the planet, which I've noticed.
Yeah, sure.
I just like being at jiu-jitsu con, like everyone in the restroom like wash their hands.
Yeah,
Which was
yeah,
cool
yeah.
to see, because you don't always see that. People like will use the restroom and like leave, and you're like, wait, you've had to wash your hands.
Yeah.
But everyone at jiu-jitsu con will wash their hands thoroughly.
Yeah. Nobody wants to catch any bad
Yeah,
stuff.
you don't want to be that guy.
Don't be that person.
Yeah. And everyone cuts their nails.
Yeah. You gotta be hygienic.
Yeah. And so
Yeah.
it's been really sort of, but yeah, we've met a lot of people through jiu-jitsu, and everyone that we've met have been like great people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Totally. I think that's, I can't, I'm so grateful for who I've met. And
And
like,
it spans such like a wide range.
yeah.
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
like, I met people like from like all walks of life, like through it. It's been interesting.
Yeah.
It's been good
Super
that way.
cool. I'm grateful that I met you through it, honestly. So, I mean,
Yeah, I've
it's-
always known
it's-
about you. That's what I was like, and we both are
Yeah,
close
same.
to Corey, so we're like,
Yeah,
we
Chloe.
met through jiu-jitsu.
Yeah. But, yeah,
and we're
man.
like been convincing friends to join us.
Yeah, now
as
it's,
well.
it's just like, who can we pull into?
Yeah.
And somehow like all the same circles that we know, it's like the same people. But yeah, man, I'm so grateful again to have done what we made together, and just thank you for your time.
Thank you.
And yeah, sharing your wisdom. Again, I love your work. I'm such a big fan, and still looking forward to everything that you do in the future, man. I'm always here for it. And Yeah, thank you.
No, thank you. I mean, you creating it, I felt so honored when you asked to create a video. I mean, I was like, what did I do to deserve
Just
this?
be you, bro.
To like
No.
deserve this sort of, I guess, accolade or
No,
treatment. You know, like,
no.
Noah's going to spend, this Emmy award-winning director is going to spend
shush.
all this time to sort of
No.
like craft something for me. So it really meant a lot.
No, man, it was an honor.
thank you.
Like, seriously, it was. So thanks, man. Yeah, you're good.
So now we're gonna
That's
like
how we
we're
gotta
gonna
do
start making out now.
Yeah,
Just stare at each
in
other.
auto tune. Yeah, sing something. We can sing something.
I don't have that voice.
Yeah, that's what auto tune's for.